universe. And if you find you're tuning into a wave, well then I don't know much about the insane.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, friends.
Welcome into another episode of Spiritual Philos-o-Chatter with the Joneses. I'm Danny Jones.
And I am Samantha Jones.
And this is episode 59.
59.
The big 59. What is the topic?
This is the Great Pyramids of Egypt.
One of my favorites.
Oh, I love this topic. Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very excited.
Yes.
Cool. But before we jump into this one, how about anything from last week?
Yes, we actually got a message this morning. It worked out perfectly because this came in to our email. It says, "Hello, Danny and Samantha. I'm Marcy. I have never written before, but I love your show and listen every week. Thank you for being so open with your lives and sharing your experiences with us. I wanted to reach out about this last episode, which was the soulmates and twin flames.
Okay.
What you both said about soulmates really made sense. There are so many things I have always hoped to be true. Soulmates is one of them. I have always felt like we have more than one soulmate as well. This episode confirmed those feelings for me. I don't think any of your listeners would deny that you two are soulmates as well. You have such a sweet connection, and listening to you interact really makes me believe in true love." Got me. That
cool.
Got me. I haven't had such luck in relationships, but I do feel there is someone out there looking for me, and we will find each other one day. Oh, and one more thing. Samantha said she doesn't feel she has a twin flame. I wanted to say that I can totally relate to that. I don't think it's that I haven't met mine yet. I just believe I don't have one. None of my spiritual friends understand that. I'm glad to know someone else does. Thanks again for your show and being such great mentors to the spiritual community, Marcy.
Thank you, Marcy.
Yay, thank you.
That was very nice. Appreciate that.
Yes, that was really sweet. Really sweet. And I was thinking more about the twin flame thing after she said that. And I think that a part of why I say that I don't have a twin flame is because this life, I need my whole soul here because I'm doing so much in this life.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, that I feel like I need to be here. And you agree to this, that I'm a very independent person. I don't need like somebody else. Like I want to be with you. I don't need you. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't need somebody else. I'm very independent. So I don't see that there would be some other part of me floating around because I feel like I'm whole already.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. So it's nice to know that somebody else kind of gets that because, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sure, there's a lot of people that
Yeah, for sure. And then I just kind of wanted to talk about this crazy world that we're living in here the last few days because, you know, we like to keep the history record on our podcast here. And over the last few days, it's been this George Floyd death and all the drama surrounding that and the riots and everything. And if you remember, I've mentioned a couple times that I felt like this drama that the U.S. especially is facing was not over.
No.
And I didn't see it coming this way.
Yeah.
Chelsea said she saw riots, and I saw riots, but I saw them more being for the coronavirus for whatever reason, like people just getting more and more mad, and that was happening. I didn't see this. This is horrible. But I really feel like this is going to move our country in a direction that it needs to go in. He sacrificed his life, and that's horrible, but this is going to make change. Our country especially is never going to be the same after this.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's over. I hate to say that.
I don't think it is either.
No.
It sucks that he had to do that for this, but I think it's important. I think this is a pinnacle thing, and what I see happening is, you know, it could be a lot more peaceful than it is, that's for sure.
Yeah. I honestly, like, I want to talk about it, and I can't because I start welling up every time.
Yeah.
It's just, it sucks.
It really does.
I hope that next week when we record our show that we will have better things to say about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's move on to the topic so I don't start crying like a baby on the show with no tissue.
All right. So is that all you have from last
That's all I have, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, then, episode 59.
59.
The Great Pyramids of Egypt.
Yes.
Which is something I've kind of always... I've always been fascinated with certain subjects. Like many people, we have our own interests,
Yeah.
you know. But super fascinated with that.
Yeah.
Along with the stars and space and science and that thing. But I always sort of questioned somewhere inside. Like I didn't really feel like, even at a young age, maybe everything that was being presented or taught to us about these things
Right.
were necessarily what exactly they were used for.
You know, and I'm kind of on the other side because I never really thought much about it at all. Like, really, until probably a few years ago, we went to, what museum was that we went to? The Getty Museum.
Mm-hmm.
And they had an Egyptian thing going on there, and they had a mummy.
Yeah.
And I remember walking into the room where the mummy was, and this was before I knew about my abilities. And I just stood there, and I could have stood there all day. It was so weird. And now I realize I probably was feeling that spirit there.
Yeah.
But there was still such a strong connection to the whole Egyptian thing.
Right.
That it sparked this curiosity in me that I never had before. And I've developed that over the last few years. But for me, I don't know that I could even say I was really taught anything about what pyramids are for. Why were they built?
Right.
I didn't pay attention in school, so I'm going to assume that they taught me that they were tombs. That's what I thought they were. That's what the rumors were, you know. But coming into this and doing this research has been really interesting because I see it. I'm coming into it finding an interest in a way that I'm not looking at them as their tombs. So now looking at that's what we were taught in school. It's kind of, none of it makes sense. You know what I mean?
It doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with Egypt, okay?
Yes. Okay.
Because I know you kind of got an outline. And
Yeah, most of it's about the pyramids, so yeah.
Right. So Egypt is in the northern part of Africa. And I always used to trip on that because you think of
Yes.
Africa and Egypt as being, I don't know why, two different continents, but they're not.
Yeah, because it doesn't feel like it would be in Africa. I don't know why.
Yeah, so we got the northern, eastern tip of Africa, which happens to be a very energetic point on our globe.
Yes.
It has a high, I can't remember.
It's the exact center of the biggest piece of land, I believe is what they said, or something like that. There's something that makes it the center.
The most
and
energetic.
It's,
Okay.
Yeah,
so
we're not highly educated. We're just philos-o-chatting.
Yeah. I mean, there's things that we have caught, but I won't be able to recite verbatim.
No, definitely not.
But anyway, so built on a site that's highly electromagnetic or whatever it's going on there. And how many thousands? We think 2,000 to 3,000 years ago?
Before Christ.
Okay. So, however, there's conflicting opinions in that area as well. Like some believe that this is way older.
Yes.
But we have those arguments between science and religion throughout history period.
For sure.
Built on a place called the Band of Peace, which runs parallel to the Nile River.
Yes. That's what the pyramids are on, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, based on where our geographic maps show today, it runs parallel.
Yes. To the Nile, yeah.
I believe it probably was much wider or over more.
From what I've read, it has shifted over the years. Yeah.
And it's underground too. So if you look at from like Google Earth and you see where the Nile's running, to the left of it's very green for quite a distance.
Yeah.
Before it hits the sand.
It is, yeah.
And then the pyramids. But to the right of it, it's not, the green belt isn't nearly as wide.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling it was much wider to begin with, and that's where all that green still consists from. But they say it runs underneath as well. Yeah. You have a full river and like lakes. We know that those exist in our world too. So the other fact that they share about this, which I don't really recall in school them talking about this, but the points of the three main pyramids line up with the constellation Orion's belt.
Yes.
Okay. Not only is that the case, but the path of the Nile and where the pyramids sit is the same path that the sun takes at a certain time of year that falls between the constellation Orion and Leo.
I think it's summer solstice, but I could be wrong.
So essentially what they're trying to do is mirror the sky with the land, making these certain monuments that are lining up for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And this all lines up and points to a constellation that's at the tip of Orion's sword. I don't remember the name of it. So that was an interesting part about that I don't remember hearing in school about that issue.
Right.
The mummy thing, I mean, we are talking thousands of years, but you would think, well, there's plenty of burial sites and places where there's still bones.
Right.
And even fragments and things. So not one of these three main pyramids, at least in the Giza Plateau, is there any mummies.
From what
tombs.
Right. From what I understand, in things that are considered a traditional pyramid, like a triangle shape, they have never found a mummy.
Right.
They have found what they say maybe pieces, like bones and stuff, and tools that are used maybe in the burial process or in the mummifying process, but never an actual mummy. No. They say that these pyramids were basically grave robbed. That's what we're taught to believe, is that there were mummies in there and that they were, taken out for whatever reason. No.
I don't believe that at all.
I don't either.
There's no, especially with today in science, there's no evidence, there's no remains, there's nothing. And then when you do open up, say, in the Valley of the Kings, which is another famous place in Egypt where actually the pharaohs were buried, is just a valley of cliffs, and they built tombs into the sides of the cliffs with very decorative, insides with treasures and their belongings, sometimes their loved ones, servants, whoever. None of this is ever found in these pyramids.
No.
So I think out of all the different theories that we've learned about and, kind of searching for more kind of truth about it, to me, the theory of it being a tomb is the most preposterous.
It is. There's no proof.
No.
There's none.
No.
There's
more proof to these other things than potential possibilities than there are that.
Right. When I put this research together, one of the things that frustrated me was that I couldn't just go to Google and put in the Great Pyramids of Giza and get what I wanted, because everything that they talk about is that it's a tomb. And then I tried, well, where's the proof that it's a tomb? I have Googled these things every which way. I had tried to put this research together in so many different ways, but the thing is that what we're taught, it doesn't make any sense at all. So what we did is we watched a lot of shows. We watched different things that we found on Amazon Prime Video and stuff about pyramids and different theories of what these pyramids may be for, because I'm sorry, I'm just not leaving it at the fact that they're tombs. It's just not.
Yeah, and it's funny, when you first had, when your spiritual awakening first happened, and we realized this was real, and we could really communicate with your mom, and I was super excited.
Yeah.
So the first thing that I want to jump into is all these mysteries of the universe. I want her to tell me all the mysteries.
Everything.
Yeah, and that was one of the first questions I asked, was obviously about other life besides Earth, and intelligent life, and about the pyramids. Right. Did we make them ourselves, or was there help? Did someone else do it, or did we use the technology that was shared by another intelligent species?
Right.
And her answer was, you have to figure this out on your own.
Yes.
This is a huge, huge mystery and one that cannot be explained still today. But it is here, and it stood the test of time to be here for a reason, because it, I believe, unlocks a lot of answers
Yes.
to a lot of our problems and our questions, our capabilities. I think it really does.
Yeah.
Like, you see these giant buildings in New York and Los Angeles and major, metropolitan cities, and you think, ooh, how big and majestic and powerful. But no, to me, those are facades compared to what that was.
Right.
And what it stood for, what it embodied. It way more. Like, those almost look like movie sets to me now.
Right. Yeah. Right. It's weird. You had pointed out about asking my mom and how she said you have to figure it out for yourself. And I think this is a great way to show how this works, because this has worked with pretty much everything along our spiritual journey, is that they can't tell us everything at once. They can't tell us things that we don't understand. We have to learn things piece by piece. So as we've gone along in this process and learned these things, then we can have the confirmation of if we're accurate or not. And then if we're not accurate, we can kind of go back and explore. They don't sit there and go, yeah, you figured it all out. But it's like little hints of, yeah, you're definitely on the right track.
Yeah, for sure.
And I understand now why that is, because I truly feel through all of this that the pyramids were power plants. And I believe that they're telling me that is what it is, that's correct. But if they would have told me 2 years ago when we asked them this, if I would have said, what were the pyramids for or whatever, oh, they were power plants, I probably would have laughed at them. Right. We had to do this research ourselves. We had to figure it out for ourselves. And that's why psychics don't know everything. You have to learn.
There was another theory that I think maybe I did hear in school, and that they were observatories.
Yes, we did hear a little bit of
stars,
that too, yeah.
Which a little bit would make sense, but according to their construction and structure, I don't buy it.
Right.
So I definitely believe that they're exactly what you said they are.
Right.
They had some healing element to them because of their what they were composed of, what they were made of.
Right.
But they also had a huge, huge power and energy element to them because of what they were made of and how big they were.
Well, let me give you some facts on the pyramids for people that aren't really familiar with their size and how these things were built. We really don't know how they were built, but there are things that we do know about it. First of all, we're talking about the 3 pyramids in Giza, is what I'm talking about here. These are the tallest, what they call man-made structures in the world. Yep. Man-made is debatable in my opinion. They're estimated to weigh 6 million tons.
Oh, God.
Yeah. They consist of 2.3 million blocks of limestone and granite. Some pieces weigh up to 80 tons each. Okay, let's stop there for a second.
Yeah.
Because we talk about how were these things built. So we picture this ancient Egypt with them tying ropes around these big gigantic rocks and somehow being able to hoist them up. That did not happen.
Right.
That's not what happened here.
No.
These rocks are so precisely cut and placed. It's amazing. And they said, too, that if this was done by hand, it would take, I have it here somewhere. I think
it was 20 years.
20 years.
With no less than, I think, 20,000 something working every day.
Every day, round the clock.
But that's kind of impossible when you look at the weather situation.
And you look, you can't work doing this at night.
You couldn't work all day, every day for 20 years.
No. So that's one area to think about. Okay, so maybe there's more to that than we know. Maybe they weren't built like that.
Right.
They were originally covered by limestone. This is something that I learned during this.
This is important.
It is very important because what we see now is just the underlying core structure. We don't see what used to be there, and it used to be covered by a layer of limestone, like a flat, smooth layer of limestone.
Well, the biggest one, So the biggest one was limestone. The second biggest one was red granite. And the third was black granite.
Yes, that was in the show that we watched.
They're covered with. So when you saw them from a distance, you would see red, black, and white, essentially. Yeah. What the limestone, and that was, I think, to really, it did a couple things. The shadow was a clock for them to know what time of the year and day it was. The shadow of the pyramids. It was from far away, like a beacon of light to know, oh, okay, we're looking for the pyramids. Oh, there it is.
Right.
You know, you'll find it.
Yep.
And then what we're talking about now.
Right.
So they were all constructed of limestone inside.
Yes.
And we'll get into why limestone is important for that.
Oh, yeah, for sure. What happened with that exterior layer was that there was a massive earthquake that loosened that was in 1303 BC, I believe. So that brought that down, but there are still pieces laying around.
Yeah, they built new like mosques and temples with this limestone that fell.
Yeah.
During that earthquake, because they probably were like, we don't know how these things were built. We're going to try to put it back, and I'm sure pieces were crumbled and whatever. So
you see these structures on TV, and you forget that they had more to them. That we're talking about thousands of years ago, and this is what's left. Yeah. The fact that this is even what's left shows you that these are the kinds of things that withstand time.
What would it have looked like brand new?
I know.
You
know,
can you
imagine?
Like, we're seeing it all dusty and covered in sand and having to unbury a lot of this stuff. When they found the Sphinx, the head was just sticking out.
Yeah.
So there's so much to unbury and learn here.
Yeah.
It's immense.
Let's talk a little bit about how these three pyramids are built. What I mean, as far as like the inside of them.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, I'm going to need your help probably with this. But there are three chambers. I drew myself a little diagram here somewhere.
Oh, you got artsy fartsy.
I did. So there's three chambers, and if you were to look at this, I really, you should bring this up maybe on your Google or something and look at what is actually inside of a pyramid.
Yeah.
It would make no sense for these to be tombs because they're not built in a way that makes sense for them to be tombs.
No.
There's three chambers to them. There's the lowest chamber is called the Queen's Chamber, and this is where they believe that the
This
Queen...
is underground. Under the pyramid.
The Queen's Chamber is in the pyramid. This is not...
Oh, I'm not talking... Okay, you're right.
Yeah,
right.
inside. So you have the Queen's Chamber, and then above that, you have the Grand Gallery, they call it, which is in between the kings and the queens, and that's above the queens. Right. And then the kings is above that.
Gotcha.
Okay, so there's three different chambers, and these chambers are connected by, I don't know what you would call them. They're not tubes, they're not pipes, they're
like small tunnels.
Yeah, small tunnels.
Square. Mm-hmm. Sometimes some you can fit in, some you can't.
Right. So what are these for? And one of the most preposterous things, I'm sorry, that I heard on one of these shows was that those ones you couldn't fit into, like there was one square one that nobody could fit into,
right.
that was for their soul to go into when they died.
Right.
No,
and that's, because a lot of the tombs that they open up, like in the Kings Valley, the hieroglyphics and the messages and stories that are painted on the walls in there are talking about what they're doing to the body to preserve it.
Right.
These types of messages are not in the pyramid.
No.
Okay?
No.
So it's a different place. It's meant for a different thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the soul, they knew how the soul went. They just preserved the body and their belongings to make sure that they traveled with. Right. Or, safely. Not the stuff didn't go with, but their soul traveled safely. So when you look at that, no, that's not what it was intended for. The only part that I would say those could have been was maybe an observatory type of idea, because it's a window that looks directly at a certain point.
Yeah.
Or you could see the stars moving past it.
Right.
Through time periods. But
right.
That still
so
doesn't
much work.
When you look at, if these were meant to be walked in, they took all this time in designing such elaborate, beautiful places with steps that lead up into things, and it's, easily accessible.
Right.
Until you get in this thing, and there's no steps.
There's no steps. Why is there no steps? So you're supposed to carry a mummy into this. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I believe that would have been built as they were building it up. If this was man-made, they would put all that in as they were going up. Not like, oh, now we got to figure out how to fit it in there.
Right.
No, I could figure them smart enough to do that. But then there's the theory, then, well, why didn't they put him in there? Well, they forgot. That's actually a theory.
Is it
that
really?
They forgot to put the mummy in there.
Okay.
So, no.
We spent all this time building this gigantic structure. Let's. Okay.
And this is for one dead person, okay?
20
years and 20,000 people. And let's keep in mind that all that stone is not quarried right there.
Right.
It's from hundreds of miles away.
Right.
Okay? That Giza Plateau is one of the oldest land masses, foundations on the earth. Mm-hmm. It has something specific about it. That's why they chose whoever built it.
Right.
The location to put it there. Because it was rock solid, so it wasn't going to move. If the earth it wasn't going to crumble. It's not sand underneath it.
Right.
The location of the water.
Right. The location of the water was a big thing.
And there's actually ring lines around the pyramid, both outside and inside, that show that the Nile River actually ran right directly through these pyramids.
Yes.
Okay? Which would also explain that hard rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It was like a bed, a seabed or a riverbed.
Well, and also they talked about the Sphinx and how that was way older than what we believe it to be. And they know that because of the water rings on the backside of it.
Yeah, the erosion. It's pre-pyramid.
Yes. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk a little bit about who built them and when did they build them? Because to me, that's also a mystery.
Right.
That could be a lot of different things. But when you Google these pyramids, they talk about this like it's fact. And to me, it's not fact. To me, there's many different things that it could be here. But they say that it was, took 20 years to build and took 100,000 men. Okay, well, there's 3 pyramids of Giza. So one was for the pharaoh and one wife, and I believe the other 2 was for additional wives or something. It was his family that was supposed to go in these three things.
Main ones, because there's 3 small ones too.
Right. Whatever it was, this was family. It was supposed to be one for you, one for you, one for you.
Right.
Okay. Now let's look at the life expectancy of somebody in that day and age. The average life expectancy was like 30 years. So this guy became pharaoh at like 20, right? I can't remember what age he died at. I don't think they know for sure. But so let's say at 20, he was like, build these pyramids. And then he dies at, and there's no pyramids. Come on.
Right.
He didn't want to build these things to watch them grow and build over his whole lifetime.
They weren't.
It's not what they were for.
They weren't that conceited of a civilization. We really make that
Thank you.
That civilization to be very conceited and full of themselves.
And scary, almost.
And scary. That's not at all what was going on there.
No.
Who built it? For me, I'm on the fence between, did they already have connections to other worlds and we had relationships that were strong and helpful?
Right.
With other civilizations on other worlds. And they, with their technology, helped us, showed us how to do this.
Right.
Okay. I sit on the fence between that and these things were already here before man was ever here.
Right.
They were put here to show us this is how you can have a natural resource made out of everything that's here.
Yes.
It's already here.
Absolutely.
Okay. You don't have to fabricate plastics and styrofoam and make a bunch of factories and junk and polluting the air. It's all here ready for you.
Yeah.
And that knowledge was there and it was used until it was starting to be abused.
Right.
And like many civilizations, they're mysteriously vanish.
Yes.
Announced to our own knowledge why these civilizations vanish. Because my belief is they had greater knowledge that was being abused.
Yeah.
Our times right now, when you look at where we're at right now, could be kind of considered similar.
They are.
There is abuse of power
Mm-hmm.
and technology and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's for another time. But so my point about that is that, yeah, I kind of struggle with that part. I feel like maybe it's just a bit too sophisticated for civilization. But then again, they learned, if they weren't shown, they learned as a civilization how to use it.
Right.
So they are pretty smart.
Right. They're very smart. I think that the Egyptians were very, very connected to the other side. Mm-hmm. We watched you watch a lot of Ancient Aliens before we even started dating.
Oh, yeah.
And it used to be one of those shows that I'd be like, what is he talking about? Mm-hmm. Giorgio, what are you talking about? Now I get it. I get it more, but like we watched this one episode that they wanted to take everything and make it about aliens and say that a lot of the geniuses talk to something.
Right.
And, maybe it was aliens. Maybe it was aliens. But I definitely believe that the Egyptians had a strong connection to the other side.
Yeah.
It shows in a lot of their history. It shows in a lot of the things that we do talk about, but we have flipped it a lot like we always do in movies and made it look like it was a dangerous society, which, I'm sure it was for that time. They still had, their bad things, but these people were very, very connected and very good with their hands. And there's no way that these things that we see were chiseled into the wall. They only had something.
They had copper as metal right now. At that time, for tools, there was copper, which is softer than granite.
Yeah.
Or you had a harder stone that could chisel a softer stone. That was it. That was their options.
Right.
So that it couldn't have been done. The other reason why I think maybe it wasn't created by man, like I mentioned earlier, is that it maps the stars.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's pointing directly to, I feel like, the people that built it. They're trying to tell us, we're here, we're watching, we're helping, and when you're ready, we'll be back.
Right. I definitely think it's possible. I think that they are much more involved in our lives than we realize.
Oh, yeah.
The thing that we tend to forget as humans is that this earth and what's going on here has been going on for longer than we can even fathom. This is about 4,000 years ago. We have no idea what was here 4,000 years ago, except for what's left.
Right.
And my feeling on it, I haven't done extensive research on Egypt and what it's like, but my feeling on it is that there's a lot of sand and there's a lot underneath that sand that we don't know anything about. And that if we could find those things, we would understand the Egyptian culture much better than we do.
Yeah.
But we're just assuming.
Right.
I gave you an example the other day of like, let's say that our civilization was completely wiped out. And then 4,000 years later, there's, people going through trying to find what's left of it. And they find a cell tower. Yeah. Their technology, their language, their everything is going to be so much different than ours that they won't be able to look at that and know what it is. Right. They'll have to figure it out. Right. And that's what do they call them? I wrote it down. Egyptologists. Oh, Egyptologists. That's what they do. They go and they find these things and they try and make sense of them, right? But it's a theory. Yes. It's not fact. It's a theory. Right. But I think that if we uncovered more of what is there in Egypt, we would be able to get more fact.
And I honestly think that even... this is a greater, a much deep-rooted kind of thing going on. But even the Egyptian Antiquities Department hides a lot of the truth from their own, because I think they don't want it to be spread worldwide. The magic of it, but like many things that are suppressed in many by governments across the globe in many countries, this is one. And it's for a greater reason, and I think that is because when we talk about them being power plants, If we look at the way that these are constructed in a different way, and let's wipe out the idea that they're a tomb. Let's forget the idea that they're possibly an observatory. Let's think about them as a power source, a generator.
Right.
Okay? You've got a body of water that's running right through and underneath a mass of limestone, which by nature is acidic because of the lime.
Right.
You have granite, which is full of quartz and therefore makes it radioactive to a degree. Yes. And then you have what we believe, because if you look really closely at the pictures of the tops of the three great pyramids, there are no caps.
Right.
They believe they were gold, and would also explain why they're the first things to go.
Right. Exactly.
Because that's a precious metal in our world today. So no tops, but gold is a great conductor.
Yes, it is.
Now, if it's running underneath and these chambers are open in the bottom to capture moisture, to create a charge through the limestone and the force of the water.
Yes.
You're now getting an electric charge going up these shafts and then shooting right through the top.
Yeah.
Okay, of all three of these things.
Yes.
Not sure if you could really see the charge. I think you could.
Yeah, I don't. It's hard to say.
But this now is doing something greater than any of us could ever prove.
Right.
Until you fast forward to 1903 and the World Fair to a man named Tesla.
Yeah.
That shows the world exactly how it was done.
Yes. I was
powerless,
gonna say that.
wireless power, wireless energy. He held a wireless bulb, a light bulb in his hand, and made it light up via the same concept.
Same concept.
Now you fast forward again to 1930s in Baghdad, and something was discovered by a man, which they call the Baghdad battery, which is a clay jar with a copper rod down inside, a copper tube, and an iron rod, and you use acidic acid, juice, lemon juice, lime juice, with an iron top and a charge at the top, and you use two of those, and they've actually, someone more recently recreated it and actually
on
got
Mythbusters.
Yeah, got a charge, Mythbusters.
Yep, sure did.
They got a charge, electric charge out of this. Now that's a tiny little clay pot.
Yep.
If you make a giant pyramid that's essentially doing the same thing, a battery, what kind of charge is that doing?
Right.
And if you look within the walls and the inscriptions of these pyramids, it shows clearly light bulbs.
Yeah. And
depictions of light bulbs and things being wired too. Okay. Now, Queen's Chamber, you said the Queen's Chamber was up here. I believe the Queen's Chamber is at the bottom.
It's not underneath, though.
Okay, it's not.
No.
But there is a shaft, I thought, that was capturing the moisture because they see water erosion and residue even inside these tunnels.
That's down farther, I believe. I don't believe that that was the Queen Chamber. I believe that's another section down below that doesn't really get talked about.
Okay.
But I could be wrong.
They find water erosion in these shafts, and they also find acidic burns on the walls of these shafts. Okay. So, you got the water coming up. This is all happening. Tesla's proven this. Tesla, just by coincidence, if you want to call it, was basically seized, and all of his documents and his research were destroyed. Yeah. He had actually created the same concept. If you look at a pyramid diagram of the infrastructure, the way it's built, and then Tesla's tower is essentially the same idea.
Pretty much exactly the
same. He did it. There was witnesses that saw him do it out on his ranch. He had a huge tower that lit up the sky. You had boats that were being charged nearby, cars. Things were receiving free electricity.
Yes.
Okay? Tesla was wiped off the map. Edison was competitive because I think Edison was more a part of this.
He was more to the money.
Yeah, the group that says we want certain industries like oil, gas, lumber, to rule the world, and that's how it's going to be, where certain things can be free to us.
Right.
They're natural. It's there. There's a field in our atmosphere that will carry an electric charge throughout the whole globe. Okay?
Yes.
So when we look at the way that these are constructed, and now we start to look around the world, and you were talking about the cell phone towers, even throughout Egypt during these times, not where they're just the pyramids, but they were these things called obelisks that look like the George Washington Monument. Okay? It's a 4-sided pillar, squared, and it points like a pyramid to the top.
Yes.
These, and there's a giant one they found nearby the pyramids that's made solely out of quartz. It was clearly cut with a laser.
Yes.
It could not have been done with the tools that they had at this time.
No.
And then there's all these other little obelisks throughout the city that are sharing this power. They're like the receptors, the receivers, and they send it out as they're getting it from the Great Pyramids.
Right.
Now, you take other places in the world that are privy to this knowledge too, because their minds were open enough to receive it. They're building other towers, okay? Like the Aztecs and the Mayans.
Yeah.
They understood that it was there and it was free.
Yep.
But you had to figure out a way to do it and harness it. Did they build their pyramids in their places? I don't know. Nobody knows.
No.
But I definitely don't think they were here and put here to bury anybody in. That's a lot of work for one dead person.
Right? It's so much work. Like, really? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
It really doesn't.
We want to believe everything that we're taught. And if we don't have an answer, then we go to maybe something else that's a possible solution and bring it in as fact.
Right.
And that's pretty much what they've done. But there is no fact that there were dead bodies in these things, period. Right. Sorry.
Now they go, what about the big boxes, okay, like the Great Pyramid?
Yes.
There's 20 giant granite boxes.
With things inside of them that show how to wire.
Yes. Well, that's true. It shows direction. And when they finally got into the Queen's Chamber, which is the most recent room to be discovered, they found wire. Copper wire.
Copper wire. Nothing else.
Nothing else.
Nothing else. So this
just two
room,
copper wires.
This room was essentially undisturbed.
Mm-hmm.
And they go in, and there's no mummy. There's a box. It's empty. Oh, somebody must have stole it.
No.
This room hasn't been disturbed at all because it's not a room. It's a part of a bigger thing.
Those weren't meant to put some body in and push the lid. There
weren't even lids around.
Storage of energy. Yep. They were holding energy.
Yep. That's exactly right.
The shafts were for the liquid and for all the interaction or the reaction, the chemical reaction that was happening with the water, the lime, the current. And another thing is you have to realize too is that certain quartzes, especially the quartz that they built, we haven't talked about this, require pressure.
Yes.
Massive amounts of pressure to react and create a charge. Mm-hmm. The way that the pyramids are built, there's so much pressure there. But there's relieving chambers that help that and distribute it to the right places for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. So you have all the interior that's created, that's built with the granite and the quartz, right?
Yep.
That's now feeding the reaction that's happening by the outer core, the limestone.
Yep.
So it couldn't be boxes for people. Because why is there 20 if it's only meant for one guy? Okay, so maybe 20 of his family, but okay, we forgot to put one guy in there, but we forgot to put all 20 of them.
What?
Oh, shoot.
Not even one.
Start over.
I don't get it.
So, yeah, it doesn't make an ounce of sense. That makes the most sense in the world.
We just don't look at it that way because we can't imagine that there was a civilization that advanced before us because we haven't found the remnants of it. But we have. We found the wires. We found the things. The pot and the, let's see, what was it that on Mythbusters? Copper, wrought iron, and lemon juice.
Yeah.
Those things are all that is needed to make this kind of thing happen.
And that's essentially what the pyramid was constructed of.
Yeah. So why do we not look at that deeper?
Because, again, I feel like that doesn't coincide with our society of nothing's free.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing's free.
Yep.
So, well, you guys, oil's going to run out one day.
Yeah.
And if we keep chopping down forests and trees, that'll run out one day too.
I think we're going to learn. I think our society will one day learn that we have everything that we need right here. We don't need to dig up oil even for any of this. We can create this in a healthy way. I think we need to be pushed more in that direction, but, that's just hippie Samantha.
Another thing that they talked about was that, and it was another part to this. I think that they served a dual purpose, and was
it's possible
that they were power generators,
right,
and B, they were healers.
Yes,
so
they had
there was chambers, like rooms that you could go in that were separate off to the sides next to the pyramids, but they had some sort of channel that I think he said that runs underneath them. It's a water.
Yes.
It's a water channel.
And it creates, I wrote this down, a physio-electricity underneath the pyramids.
Yes. And there becomes a tone, a resonance. That's why all this stuff has to be made out of the same material. Like it can't be, let's put a little bit, we ran out of limestone.
Right.
We've got to put granite here. No. Every part had to be the same, because that's the way that electricity needs to move and conduct through things. It has to be all made from the same part.
Right.
That won't interrupt the flow.
Right.
So these little rooms or boxes off to the side flow underneath these channels that create what you were talking about. They also talk about that the rooms or the chambers inside the pyramids themselves have a particular perfect pitch.
Yes.
Okay. So just like when a singer can sing to the same frequency as the glass,
yes,
they'll break it, but only until they hit the same frequency. Well, these were almost tuned to that perfect frequency where they're healing with sound,
yes,
with tone.
Yeah.
I heard Sylvia Brown say this once on, what's his name? Show.
Dr. Phil?
No.
Montel Williams?
Montel Williams. That we are going to make advancements in medicine in the future, and we will start to learn how to heal with high-frequency sound waves.
We have, somewhat.
Right. So, and other doctors are going back in Britain and England to prescribing music therapy.
Yeah.
To heal.
It's a part of this
but
metaphysics,
these
too.
Chambers were made of, he said it was a bed you would lay down in, and it was made solely of quartz, white quartz, which, again, is a very, holds a lot of energy. So you would lay down, he said the doctor would stick his head in and ask you what the problem was.
Oh, yeah.
And stick his head out of this hole, and you would lay there for however long. And so I do believe that it had a dual purpose, but its main purpose was to create something that should be free to everybody.
Yes. And then, you look at, well, why pyramids? Why the shape that they are? Why the size that they are? Which really, we don't really know. There is a lot of unused space, it seems, in these pyramids. Like, there's very little that's used.
I think because the amount of pressure that they create, they needed that amount of pressure to be able to project that amount of energy.
It's the energy. And it has something to do with the energy. And I'll tell you why I feel this way is because you may think that this has nothing to do with it, but the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas, I am so sensitive, and I know this is a question I asked on the discussion group. Are you sensitive? And there are a lot of people that have said that they go into the Luxor and they feel weird.
Right.
Okay, so I was like 16 when I went there, and I was seeing a therapist at a Akashic bookstore. So she was like a psychic therapist. And she told me that I couldn't handle it. My energy would not be able to handle going in there. I decided I was going to try it anyways, thinking whatever it was I could overcome.
Yeah.
But it threw my equilibrium off so bad that I couldn't function. And I always looked at it as, well, there were so many people that died during building that hotel. But now I believe that it's because of the shape. I believe there's something about that shape that brings an energy that they needed for this electricity.
Right. I just feel like I got that really strong messages. That is supposed to be our understanding that they weren't tombs. You're not you're not meant to be inside them because of the energy.
Yes.
It's like a nuclear power plant. You don't want to be inside them.
Right.
That's their way of trying
agree.
to say, that's not what these are for, guys.
Yeah.
It weren't people inside of them.
Right. I don't think we're supposed to be in something shaped like a triangle like that. We're just not because of the pull of it, whatever it's doing. And, you know, a lot of people, they don't notice. They don't notice at all. But I'm so sensitive and you're so sensitive. There's just no way.
Yeah, I didn't like it at all.
No. And I wanted to. I really did.
You know, a lot of the people that we give credit to discovering things in our world in certain timelines or eras, are they really discovering it or are they rediscovering it?
Right, exactly.
So, Benjamin Franklin, did you discover electricity?
No.
Or did you just stumble on it like people thousands of years before you did?
Yes.
You know, some of the things that Tesla patented, one of them was the laser.
Yeah.
Okay? So if you can, and you look at some of these cuts
If
and
the
things
Egyptians did that, yeah.
And the way
They
they
had
were
lasers.
building things, there was these bowls that were perfectly smooth and round with drain holes, like almost a giant sink.
Yes.
And there was just several of them. These were fountains.
Oh, I love
They
that
had
you
running
bring that
water and they had electricity.
Yep.
And these were fountains that would drain, but they stayed full enough and they were circulating all the time. Mm-hmm. That's what these are for.
But do you know what they said they were for? Do you remember? This got me.
Oh, the sacrificing bowls so the blood drained out.
For the blood to drain out, to sacrifice animals because of some voodoo stuff that they thought the Egyptians
But there's
were
no
doing.
stains from blood.
There's no proof of
DNA of anything left there.
You can tell just by looking at it
They were
that
immaculately
it's like a
clean.
fountain. It's we just want to hype it up. We want to make it look like something it's not.
Right.
You know?
It's okay to question.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That this is why we have scientists and pioneers and explorers, and it's okay to question.
Yep.
And once you come back with a certain answer, and some of the earliest people that we have that are discovering the pyramids and document them, you know, we got that aren't really specialists in anything.
Right. Yep.
They're I hate to say it, grave robbers. They were looking for treasure.
That's really the thing here is that a lot of this has to do with money. And as long as there's money involved in it, there will always be corruption involved in it.
Yeah.
If you want to know what really happened during that time, then you have to have people find it out that aren't looking to be paid, that are just looking to find out the truth, you know, because if there's a payday, I just don't buy it anymore.
And another thing is, real quick too, is that an interesting part is the Egyptian Antiquities Department covered up one of the most famous pillars. I don't even know what it's called.
I tried to find it.
It's called a certain thing. I want to say like a pin or something, but it's sort of an arched, just pillar.
Yeah.
That's got hieroglyphics that explains this.
Yeah.
A lot of this, and
it's covered.
Yeah, it's covered with metal and wood.
Yep.
Completely covered to their own people, to the world.
Yep.
That explains where these, because anywhere in all the hieroglyphics of Egypt, nowhere does it talk about the construction of the pyramids. Nowhere.
No, it doesn't. From what I've read.
But these people were adamant in sharing on the walls of their city their history. Mm-hmm. Why did they leave that one part out? Because maybe they couldn't tell it.
Right.
Because they didn't know themselves.
Yeah. And there's a lot of UFOs depicted in their
and even if
work.
You could depict what happened, why couldn't you go back later and pick a temple to say, we're finally going to tell the story of how our city was built.
Right.
And these were built.
Right.
Yet they never did. Dynasty after dynasty.
Yeah. And if you think about it, it's possible that they were there long before, really, because if this earth is billions.
It's way older, you guys. It's
There's
way
so much
older.
that could have happened here before. What makes us think that those just had to be put there 4,000 years ago? You know?
And if we could untap these mysteries and really,
Yeah.
you know what? All we have to do is ask for the truth, and we'll be given the truth. But we have to accept where it comes from and when it comes. But I'll tell you what, these are the types of magic and mysteries that are on this planet and have stood the test of time because they're there for a reason for us to learn from and to find the answer. And it could potentially change a lot of the baloney that you see going on the television right now.
Yes, absolutely. I really hope that we get in a direction like that.
Yeah.
I really do.
So, always question.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can't, I'm not going to say don't trust anything, but if something just seems weird, like a giant triangle in the middle of the desert that never even had a body in it, but it has to be a tomb, question these types of things. They don't make sense.
We even asked Marina, so what do you remember about what you've learned so far about the pyramids and what their uses? And they're essentially teaching the same thing.
She said they're tombs. Well, what if they're not? But they are.
Right.
Because that's what we were taught.
Right. But so that's what I mean. We have to question.
Yeah.
Because not everything is what it seems.
No.
I'd say most
aren't.
things aren't what they seem.
Exactly.
It's such a broader spectrum, and we only see so many colors and so many dimension. It's incredible.
Even what's happening now, because people are looking at this as the end of days. I mean, there's people that are like, "Oh, this fits Revelations." This, what's happening here is it's going to change us, but it's also about how you look at it.
Right.
If you look at it as the world's falling apart, then your world's going to fall apart. But if you look at it as maybe this is going to help us fall into place, it changes your perspective on things, and that opens your mind to different possibilities.
Yeah, let's change.
Yeah.
Man, this
would be nice.
So this place is here for many, many, many other generations.
Yeah.
But let's do it. Let's do it together. But let's find out together.
Yeah.
What the answers are. And really listen. And I'm not anybody listening to this might go, "Oh, baloney. I don't buy it." You don't have to buy it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
And I was going to say that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't.
This is what we believe. If you still listen to this and afterwards still believe that they're tombs, then that's great. We can just agree to disagree. Yeah. That's what's so great about our world, is that we don't all have to have the same opinion.
I think that what's hard about this particular issue and why it's remained a mystery for so long is because if it's unlocked, we're going to have to rewrite our history, people.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to have to look at the fact that what we've been told, and not necessarily intentionally by everybody, some of it's just what you learned, and it's passed on, and it's passed on, and it's passed on. But what we were told is not true.
Right. Look at Christopher Columbus. Right. I mean, I don't know that that's something that people worldwide know, but in America, that he was supposed to be the guy that founded America or whatever. And then comes to find out, nope, he didn't. He actually stole it.
They actually have these people that are involved in this, trying to crack this, that are approaching the Catholic Church and talking to them about, we need to sit down and
figure this
look
out,
at this
man.
out. We might have to really rewrite some stuff. And no, I'm sure they don't want to. People don't want to hear that, and that's okay. But you know what? What are we screaming and shouting and about in the streets right now? Because people feel like they're being mistreated and lied to.
Yep.
So,
it's true.
Anyways, that's my rant.
Yay. Well, and that was a good episode.
It was awesome. I'd love to go on about it way longer.
Yeah, me too.
And somebody else that I was thinking, Tessa's episode, I'd love to talk more in depth about
especially
him, and especially what he was trying to do for humanity.
Yeah.
Is amazing, and what that civilization, the Egyptians, were doing for their time and their civilization was amazing.
I think it's great. I think we should absolutely do an episode on it. I think opening our eyes to different things that we weren't necessarily taught. These geniuses, Tesla, Einstein, a lot of these composers, They got a lot of their stuff from the other side, and we need to talk about that.
Oh, yeah. And they admittedly say that.
They do.
So Einstein is a great example. He would be one.
I'm very interested in learning more about Einstein.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Hey.
Well, before we say goodbye, how about sharing your page?
Let's do it. You can find everything you need to know on my website at SamanthaJonesPsychicMedium.com.
Awesome.
Hey.
And for my art, you can check me out, djonesartcollection.com, and for Instagram and Facebook at djonesartcollection. And for the music, you can check that out at gypsybrown.com, Instagram at gypsybrownmusic, Facebook at gypsybrownband. That's it for me.
Wonderful.
Well, thanks, everybody, for listening in. We hope you got something out of it.
Yep. Hope you enjoyed it.
I love talk about it.
Yes, me too.
So we hope you guys have a great week. Until next week.